All right, let's get started. Welcome everyone to the primary election season for 2024 for the Douglas County Democrats. We've got a great series of forums put together over the next 7 to 8 Tuesdays, so people can get to know the candidates who are running for all the different elections and open seats at the local and state levels. Okay, so for tonight we have some candidates from Senate District 2. So we've got Marci Francisco and Christina Haswood. Senate District 3, Dena Sattler, Bill Hammond, House District 117, and Board of Education, I think they're called Districts 4. And we also have Courtney Shipley, who will moderate our panel. But before that, we have a couple of housekeeping items and some upcoming dates to share. So housekeeping, the panelists are able to come off mute. Anybody from the public will be on mute, but you can type in a question from chat. These will also be recorded. We don't have a ton of people from the public. I'm not sure if we have anybody, but we have found that a lot of people listen later on as we get closer to the primary. So this will be heard and shared widely, even if there's not a great big audience tonight. Some upcoming dates: July 16th is the last date to register to vote in the primary. Early voting starts the very next day, and then it ends right before primary, so it ends on the 5th. Mail-in ballots are recommended to mail those by July 29th. See. And then here's a little bit bigger timeline of what's coming for this year. We've got city and school board candidates, primary in August, general elections obviously in November. And, oh, sorry, those are past. So coming up is the we did the presidential primary. And then we've got the primaries for DA, sheriff, county commission, Senate and House districts. And we'll hear from some of those candidates tonight, as I mentioned, and then the general election later. I think that is it for the slides. Let me see if I can figure out how to stop sharing here. And I will introduce Courtney Shipley, who will introduce our guests tonight. So Courtney Shipley has lived in Lawrence for more than 30 years, raising 2 kids here in this community. She has a degree from the University of Kansas, and she served on the city commission, including a term as the mayor and the first Latina mayor of Lawrence. So welcome, Courtney. Thank you so much for moderating our forum tonight. We're really glad to have you. I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm really pleased to be here with you all this evening. As your mayor and commissioner, I have been privileged to speak with the next 2 candidates many times and regularly. So I'm honored also to be here to moderate this tonight because of my special feelings about both of them. So I try not to be too chatty. Let's just go ahead and get started. We have and Representative Christina Haswood, and they're running for district. So I'll go ahead with these questions. Marci, if you could go first, and we'll just do every other person first. Okay. Senator Francisco, please introduce yourself to our audience. As part of your introduction of self, please share what you consider to be the most significant accomplishments during your term in office, and that's 2 minutes.
Thank you, Courtney. I'm Senator Marci Francisco. First, my thanks to the Douglas County Dems for organizing this forum, and to all of you who are taking the time to join us. I've been honored to represent the 2nd District in the Senate. Redistricting has changed the boundaries for all the Senate districts, and there are new county commission districts, so be sure to check the maps. I understand they will be posted at next Sunday's spy auction. I'm guessing many of you already know me and my husband, Joe. We've been active in the community, shopping, and Joe playing music at the farmer's market, rehabbing properties to provide quality, affordable housing, and being involved with a variety of community organizations. Years ago, when things weren't quite so contentious, I was able to get a bill passed that increased the minimum wage in Kansas to match the federal minimum. I want to work to increase that in Kansas to make it a living wage. I've continued to speak out for women's reproductive health care, against false information and invasive questions. More recently, I've been working in the legislature to protect home rule, especially after the attacks on Lawrence's ban on single-use plastic bags. I'm proud that so many of the amendments I've offered have been adopted, including increasing the annual funding for the state water plan by $5 million, making dispatchers considered to be first responders, increasing the share of 911 fees that go back to the county dispatch centers, including the role of the state's regional library system in a bill to expand 2 library districts, and paying off $4 million in debt in this year's budget. I look forward to the questions and sharing information with you about my ideas in the next 4 years in the legislature.
Thank you very much. Now let's see if we can hear from Representative Haswood.
Thank you so much, Yate. Hello, my name is Christina Haswood, she, hers. I'm Native American Indigenous woman from the Navajo Nation, and I'm running to be your next state senator for Kansas State Senate District 2. I'm running because I cannot point to one Kansas State senator who holds the working class, lived experiences, and current struggles that I and many others in our community face. So many people in this district and this state are struggling to get by. The cost of everything's going up. We're living paycheck to paycheck. And we're stuck with the state legislature focused on issues like abortion bans, vouchers, and unfair tax loopholes. Kansas can do better. And we can do better if we elect more leaders who understand these realities and who are invested in finding real long-term solutions to these issues. We deserve somebody who carries our voice, representation, and lived experiences in our state Senate. Elected to the State House in 2021, I first ran for public office when I was 26 years old because I was tired of watching out-of-touch politicians in Topeka waste our taxpayers' dollars, waste our time, and waste our potential. Over the past 4 years, I've come to realize that if we want to create solutions to problems so many Kansans face, we need to elect state senators who share my lived experiences. I cannot point to another state Kansas senator who shares the same working class reality that I and many others in our community face. The last 2 years, I've served as the House Democratic Policy Chair, and I'm proud to have been a leader on the House side and very excited to bring that leadership to the Senate side. My most significant accomplishment in the Kansas State Legislature was passing the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Peoples Training Recommendation for our state law enforcement entities in my first year in office. This is an issue our Lawrence Native community feels close to now, especially with the recent case and loss of a former high school student. To see this policy come into fruition and yet still fall short of its mission gives me more motivation to continue to work for change. Thank you.
Thank you. So the second question will again be for Representative Haswood. What expertise, education experience do you have to help you do the job of the Kansas legislature?
I was born and raised here in Lawrence. My parents had me at a young age and then moved off the reservation for a better life. They utilized social service programs such as WIC, Section 8 housing, and tribal social services to help us get by. And now as a young professional, I'm a renter of an apartment. I work multiple jobs just to make ends meet. And like many in our community, student loan debt is such a real factor in my financial life. These lived experiences make me an expert to issues in our communities are facing. I'm a proud product of our K-12 USD 497 district. I understand firsthand the value and opportunity public schools provide to kids, regardless of their background or zip code. Growing up, I knew that a good education would open doors. Our schools and the teachers and staff who support students change lives every day. That's why I dedicate my time to volunteering with the Indigenous Education Work Group created by Kansas State School Board, and being a product of public schools here in Lawrence, I am proud to have the endorsement of USD 497 Board President Kelly Jones. I went on to study at Haskell Nations University, Arizona State University, where I studied public health and returned to Lawrence to get a master's in public health management from the University of Kansas Medical Center. My academic background has taught me to lead with a public health lens, along with my experiences of being a Navajo woman and in tribal politics and health spaces. I serve on the Health and Human Services in the Kansas House, where I've been a leader on and protecting reproductive rights and advocating for Medicaid expansion.
Thank you very much. Now Senator Francisco.
Thank you. I have a lot of education and experiences that have served me well in the legislature. My degree in architecture and work at KU as an instructor in the School of Architecture and assistant director of the Office of Facilities Planning have been particularly helpful to me as a member of the Joint Committee on State Building Construction. Serving on the Lawrence City Commission and as mayor gave me a good background for work in the Senate's Local Government Committee and in understanding the importance of home rule to allow local communities to experiment with new programs and policies. Being president of the Community Mercantile, one of the first groceries focused on local foods, and working each fall of the past 13 years picking chestnuts for Chestnut Charlie's has given me connections with local farmers and, along with work on a League of Women Voters study on state watershed districts, gave me a strong foundation for the Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee. Focusing on energy efficiency in our renovation work, installing solar collectors years ago, and being a staff member in KU's Center for Sustainability gave me a good start in the Senate Utilities Committee. I've been a member of the Oread Neighborhood Association, the Community Development Block Grant Advisory Board, the Lawrence Association of Neighborhoods, the Recycling and Resource Conservation Board, and the Board of Zoning Appeals. I show up at events to support much of the work others are doing in our community, all ways to connect with people in Lawrence. I've not only traveled across Kansas on vacation, but also as president of the Kansas Grassroots Arts Association, the Kansas Preservation Alliance, and the League of Women Voters of Kansas. I've done bike across Kansas.
Oh,
all these things have allowed me to connect with Kansans across the state.
sorry.
That's
I had
okay.
to stop you there.
And I will add, my job as a waitress years ago gave me some of the best experiences I've had to be a good public.
I'm cutting you off. Thank you both. Now, Senator Francisco, you'll be first on this third question. What are the critical issues facing the state of Kansas that the legislature needs to address?
So there are a lot of critical issues facing the state, ranging from early childhood education to gun control. But I'm going to take time to focus on just three: taxes and the budget, access to healthcare, and climate change. If the legislature doesn't balance tax policy with the state's budget, we find ourselves in another mess. We're heading back June 18th to see if the House, Senate, and Governor can all agree on a tax plan. I strongly support the current three-tier tax brackets and three key planks of the governor's tax plan: making cuts that are sustainable, including property tax reductions as part of the mix, and the one everyone seems to agree on, moving up the date to fully eliminate sales tax on food. But more needs to be done regarding property taxes. Residential property taxes once made up about 1/3 of the state and local property tax collections. Now it's more than 50%. This is unsustainable and needs to be rebalanced. We have to collect enough revenue to cover expenses. I first ran for the Senate to support a new school financing formula. That formula is going to be reconsidered next year. We can't go back to the way schools were funded under Brownback, and we need to make sure there is room in the budget to continue increased funding for special education, decrease the waiting list for intellectual and physical disabilities, provide for our CAPERS retirees, and address other concerns. Access to healthcare continues to be a concern. Many legislators in Topeka have worked to limit rather than expand and protect access to healthcare. Instead of addressing the discrepancies in infant and maternal health for women of color, the Republican majority chose to allocate $2 million for pregnancy compassion centers. We can't afford to continue to lose providers by not expanding Medicaid. We also need to provide more mental health care and protect reproductive health freedoms and gender-affirming care. I co-sponsored a bill with Senator Holland to enact the Medical Autonomy, Accessibility, and Truth Act to allow true reproductive health care clinics to benefit from tax-deductible donations, remove restrictions on insurance coverage for abortions, and eliminate the requirements for providers to share false information. I will continue to support those changes and honor the August 2nd referendum and be ready to work against efforts to ban IVF, surrogacy, and contraception, as we've seen in other states. The legislature made good progress on the state water plan, but overall concerns with quality and quantity of water, along with protections for clean air and healthy soils, remain. We have experienced effects of climate change, and we're running out of time to make the changes and adaptations that are needed.
Thank you. Next, Representative Haswood.
Thank you. It's really hard to boil these questions down to 3 minutes, but I'm going to try. Medicaid expansion, definitely of the top priority. Our local partners like LMAC, Spurt Nash, Heartland, etc., are losing out on millions of dollars without the expansion of Medicaid. We must expand Medicaid. Public education, our public education and schools are constantly under attack, underfunded. Our teachers and staff are stretched thin, and special education, along with other services such as mental health, and all need our support. I visited Title I schools from Topeka to Kansas City, along with frequently visiting some of the schools here in Lawrence to always check in and see what the issues are on the ground. Abortion rights. Kansas spoke loud and clear. We all did here, August 2nd, 2022, that they don't want politicians making decisions, abortion decisions for them. Environment. So the climate change must be addressed, and we must help our state achieve clean energy operations in the upcoming decade. As an Indigenous woman, protecting and advocating for the preservation of our environment is a value that has been instilled in me and my culture all the way back to the ancestors. In my professional life, I've worked with environmental groups to ensure policy that helps us achieve our climate goals. And with the economy, we need a leader who can work along with economic leaders and businesses to provide those opportunities for our small and local businesses, our BIPOC businesses, our women-owned businesses, and veteran-owned businesses to support that. LGBTQ+, we need to continue to protect our trans youth and our LGBTQ+ folks from hate and discrimination, and of course, medical, recreational, cannabis, marijuana. We need to get that done. All these issues are crucial, but what state legislator and state senate needs right now is a fresh perspective, new ideas, and someone who has lived experiences that can help shape policy that makes Kansas a place people want to call home. Kansas is currently one of the top states for people moving out. We need to change this and find solutions to these issues, and that is something I believe my lived experiences and perspective will allow us to achieve in the state senate. We need to make living in Kansas affordable. We need to make it possible for young folks to buy a house and start a family, no matter what your family may look like.
Thank you. The fourth question now will go again to you, Representative Haswood. Of those issues you mentioned, which issue would be your highest priority and why? 3 minutes.
Thank you. I would say public health. As a public health professional, someone with a master's in public health, it's important for me to use my background to be a leader on this issue. Just like I was a leader in the Kansas Constitutional Amendment to protect abortion rights in our state, we have a choice in the legislature, and that is to expand Medicaid, protect reproductive rights, and to create attainable mental health resources for our communities. Even though we have this Republican majority that fights us every step of the way, I will lead with expertise on this issue, and I will work with my colleagues and Governor Kelly to continue to get us further on this topic. Our inability to address these things is reasons why people are leaving our state. If we want our state to be a place where people can live and raise a family, we must solve problems like these. This is why I'm running in the first place. Our community has always been on the forefront of my mind. During time in the Kansas House of Representatives and in the state Senate, I will continue to use my lived experiences and vote with Lawrence in the forefront of my decision-making process. This community that has given me so much and raised me will always be #1 concern in the state legislature, as it has been for me in the last 4 years. Lawrence has always been a target at the state level. We have seen policies discourage the work we have done at the local level in Lawrence, such as statewide bans that overreach home rule, and we see attacks by those who are eager to go after Lawrence due to what our community stands for. As someone who comes from a marginalized community, I often see issues that some people might not always catch. I often see issues such as affordable housing, access to education, the ability to vote, discrimination, and many other issues that I bring leadership to with the lens of lived experience. Bringing this lived experience I have to the state Senate makes me the best person to defend our community's values and work to ensure that Lawrence is represented every opportunity I have.
Thank you. Senator Francisco?
Thank you. My highest priority for legislation is to address environmental concerns, especially if I can stay on the same committees. Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources, Local Government, Senate Utilities, and the Joint Committee on Building Construction all have significant opportunities to address environmental issues. The Senate Agriculture and Natural Resources Committee has been making recommendations on the budgets for the Department of Agriculture, the Environmental Division of the Department of Health and Environment, Wildlife and Parks, and for the State Water Plan. I want to ensure that the state continues to allocate funds for many of the projects these groups oversee. Just a few include new programs to promote soil health, funding for food banks to purchase food from local farmers, increased oversight of pesticide use, implementing new limitations on emissions, protections for the state's wildlife, controls to limit algae blooms and invasive species, investment in cover crops and riparian corridors, and research into water injection dredging to extend the life of our reservoirs. I have agreed to introduce a bill next session to ban pesticide-coated seeds that pose a threat to pollinators. The Local Government Committee must continue to uphold home rule. Local units of government provide opportunities to experiment with ordinances that address specific community needs, whether that be for trash collection or distributed solar. The Senate Utility also reviews the budget for the Kansas Corporation Commission. The state should be investing in our state energy office. It's really now just one individual. I want to be working towards a more robust office and a state energy plan. If we don't have a state energy efficiency code, at a minimum, the state should be requiring such efficiency codes for housing built with state grant funds. If the utilities are not affordable, that housing will not be affordable. The committee passed good legislation on wind turbine facilities to apply for light mitigation technology and expanded the opportunities available for net metering for investor-owned customers. Those standards should be reviewed for customers of electric cooperatives. The Joint Committee on State Building Construction reviews bids for construction and leases. There are energy standards, but it's time for those to be reviewed as well.
Thank you both. Our fifth question will be for Senator Francisco first. What is your strategy for getting a majority of the legislature, Republicans and Democrats, to care about and support what you've just discussed? 3 minutes.
My strategy starts with knowing where others are coming from. I talked about traveling across the state. When asked if I'd ever been to Smith Center, I could say yes. I worked with other members of the Kansas Preservation Alliance on a project in the bank building at 4th and Main. Or when learning that someone's from Newton, I often say, I love the monument to turkey red wheat. I also try to learn about issues other legislators are addressing in their districts by taking time to listen to them. And when you know others have a local League of Women Voters or a chapter of the Sierra Club in their community supporting an issue, I may ask, are you hearing the same things I'm hearing from many of my constituents? I'm proud of my voting record, but even more so of my reputation in the State House for reading the bills and knowing the details. Other legislators are more interested when you can offer information and positive suggestions, especially in committees where it's easier to focus on the details of legislation. Before I offer amendments, either in committee or on the floor, I talk with others so I can get them to share my ideas and I can hear their suggestions and comments. With that, I have established a record of getting many of my amendments adopted with bipartisan support. I will very much miss working with Senator Hammond and Representative Buchheiberger. They're both retiring at the end of this term. Join me in thanking them for their service. However, even with good replacements in their seats, it won't be enough to make the most of Governor Kelly's final 2 years in office. For that, we need to add more Democrats in the legislature and on the State Board of Education. I will be focusing on what I can do to help other Democrats in other districts get elected to office, particularly once this primary election is over. Breaking the supermajority will give Democrats a much stronger voice at the table and more influence over the process and agenda. I will be working to see that fellow candidates Dena Sattler and Bill Hammond get elected to the legislature and Kris Meyer to the State Board of Education so that we ensure all Democrats get their voices heard.
Thank you. Representative Haswood, same question.
Getting stuff done as a minority party is hard, but we can achieve change by writing, introducing, and establishing real impactful legislation, not only just by amending existing bills. I've already done this with the passage of the MMIP bill. I was a co-sponsor of this bill, and it was a bipartisan collaborative effort. And this was not the first time I had to work across the aisle to bring forth positive change and legislation that is impactful to our community and to our state. I found that by building relationship with folks within our party and those who are not, then we meet each other where we are and when we have honest conversations. We can come together to create meaningful bipartisanship legislation and solutions that benefit all of us. For example, my Indian Child Welfare Act bill, ICWA bill, I was able to get a bill hearing, which is a challenge in itself. But the bill was just sent to Judicial Council, which I've been told will come out with a recommendation. This issue gained national attention because it was at risk for the National Supreme Court to overturn the federal ICWA. My ICWA bill was the state of Kansas's first ever attempt to solidifying ICWA into state law. During my time in the Kansas House, I've been an effective leader and collaborator within my Democratic colleagues. I've been at service to my caucus, and overall with any legislative assistance are showing freshman legislators the ropes and helping them avoid mistakes I made when I first was in their shoes. With Republican colleagues, I've co-sponsored some that I found would benefit my constituents and our community. And as the only current Native American member of the entire Kansas State Legislature, I have made strong relationships with folks in the Capitol of all backgrounds, of all political ideologies, where they come to me and ask me the awkward or embarrassing questions.
Thank you both. Then the next question again will be for you, Representative Haswood. What legislative issue are you most passionate about, and what motivates and drives you to public service? Three minutes.
Thank you. I'm passionate about our community, fresh perspectives, and building a brighter future for our state. Making Lawrence and our state a place where young and old people can stay and build a life for themselves, just like I have. I'm motivated by our youth, our community, and the values we share. As an elected official for the past 4 years, I've made it a priority to give young people a seat at the table to help craft and shape policy that will impact their future because they are the future. I remember what it felt like to feel like your voice is not heard or you're not being taken seriously. Folks are fast to tell you to stay in your lane and wait your turn. But we inherit a future that is more of the same, that has us facing issues we're facing today. Our community is ready for change. And on the policy issues we have discussed tonight, I'm ready to represent our community's lived experiences because they often line up with my own. It is these values of our community that I've been surrounded with my whole life, and it's our community that motivates me and inspires me to work hard to ensure Lawrence is the best that it can be. The future of Lawrence is coming fast, and I am running to lead us into the future and to represent so many voices that have not or are still fighting for a seat at the table.
Thank you very much. The penultimate question here. Sorry, Senator Francisco.
Do you want to know what I'm passionate about?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
I've really enjoyed working on the variety of issues that are raised in the legislature, and I've learned a lot. I'm certainly passionate about the environment, but I also find myself passionate about whatever issue is on the table. I didn't think I'd be involved in the bill that limited purchases of drones and their components, but after being contacted by 2 members of the Lawrence Police Department and hearing their concerns, I took an active interest and was able to help stop that bill from becoming law. Going back to the question about getting a majority to care about your issues, you need to care about theirs. That doesn't mean you have to agree with everything or trade votes, but you do need to listen and understand where others are coming from and perhaps offer help or suggestions on wording. And you need to be interested in everything. More importantly, I'm passionate about hearing from my constituents and figuring out what I can do to help them with their concerns. I have a great office assistant who helps me keep track of constituent contacts and the issues they've raised. I also find myself passionate about the process. Over the past several sessions, I've been concerned about many of the bills that never get a hearing, the reduced amount of public notice giving for the hearings that are held, and the number of hearings that limit public comment to only invited speakers. Citizens and legislators should be included with adequate notice to prepare for a hearing or debate on the floor. We need real discussion and alternative viewpoints, focusing on the needs of Kansans. Bills that have been passed by only one chamber are often bundled with other bills in a conference committee report, making it often impossible to single out a particular concern. Eliminating the sales tax on food would have started July 1st if it had not been bundled with the proposal for the single rate or flat tax. We need to make the process of making these laws more transparent, inclusive, and equitable. The legislature has ignored a number of issues that the majority of Kansans support. We saw that in the August 2nd vote, and we've seen it in the rallies to support Medicaid expansion and medical marijuana. If the legislature continues to ignore the will of the majority of Kansans, we should work to adopt a ballot initiative and referendum process. I'm driven to public service because I enjoy the interactions with people and opportunities to make a difference for my community.
Thank you both. Before we do the final question, I do want to thank you both for being here. And of course, thank you both for your service. Both of your positions at this time are very complicated, and we're all very grateful that you do this work for our community. Our final question, this will be for Senator Francisco. Why are you asking for our votes?
I'm asking for your vote because I've accomplished what I've accomplished in the legislature, and because there's still important work I want to get done. I'm hoping you received a copy of my news from the Capitol in your mailbox to catch up on what I've been working on. I'm proud of my record in service to my constituents across Lawrence and Douglas County. I will continue my record of paying attention to details, working with other senators to build consensus and get good bills and amendments passed. We are lucky here in Douglas County in that the numbers currently favor Democratic candidates. We need to make sure that we elect an effective progressive senator. Thank you all for your time. I humbly ask for your vote in the August primary.
Thank you very much. Representative Haswood.
I'm asking for your vote because I'm a leader who brings real lived experiences that actually reflect our community and their lived experiences. Knowing this and experiencing what I've had makes me the best equipped candidate to find the solutions to the issues our community is facing. As a proud Democrat, I'm passionate about working with my colleagues to ensure issues that Governor Kelly's focus on come to and pass in the state legislature. I'm proud of the coalition we built with endorsements of former Governor Kathleen Sebelius, USD 497 School Board President Kelly Jones, Jay Armbruster, Shannon Reed, Advanced Native American Political Leadership, former Mayor Jennifer Nanda, and many more. We must expand Medicaid. We must continue to protect reproductive rights. We must continue to protect our LGBTQ+ community, legalize marijuana, and I am proud to be running as a Democrat. I respect and value the voices of the voters in our community to make their voices heard in the Democratic primary on August 6th.
Thank you. Thank you both again for being here this evening. And of course, thank you for your service. I think we're going to move on now to our next people. We'll just all take a nice deep breath so the next people can get prepared. Sorry. First, we'll go to Senate District 2. While we're spoiled for choices in the District 3, Dena is running unopposed by a Democrat. So she will be fielding these questions on her own. I can't see her yet on the screen, but I welcome you and thank you for being here. Please introduce yourself to our audience, and as part of your introduction, please include expertise, education, and experience that will help you do your job in the Kansas legislature.
Yeah, sounds good. Hi, I'm Dena Sattler. I live in Topeka, and I'm running for the new Kansas Senate District 3, which includes part of Lawrence and Douglas County, part of Shawnee County, part of Franklin County, and all of Osage County. My opponent is Republican Rick Cluse, a far-right ultra-conservative who's been a faithful rubber stamp for the many bad policies pursued by Republican leadership in the State House. A little bit about me. I'm a former longtime newspaper publisher here in Kansas. From there, I worked 3 years on the senior staff of Governor Kelly and Lieutenant Governor Toland. And when elected, I'll be the first woman with military service to serve in the Kansas Senate. As a career journalist, I was a truth teller and fought for transparency and accountability. I'm also a professional listener, thanks to my work as a reporter and editor, so I'm well prepared to listen to the people of my district. My work in state government gave me a close look at the challenges of policy making, and especially the pragmatic, common sense approach by Governor Kelly in particular. Remember, she first took on a state government that was wrecked by the Brownback experiment, then navigated us through an unprecedented pandemic. Her work has truly inspired me in my run for Kansas Senate. As for my military service, it definitely gave me an important skill set that will be very useful as a state senator. First, when you serve in the military, you learn pretty quickly to work with people of different backgrounds and beliefs. We desperately need that spirit of tolerance and cooperation in the State House. I will definitely work toward bipartisan solutions. We need more Kansas-specific solutions instead of more bad bills from cookie-cutter bill mills outside our state. Because of my work as a journalist and my time in the Army, I have very thick skin. I won't be intimidated or bullied, and I'll fight for what's right. On the education front, I have a bachelor's degree in political science and global studies, and I spent 5 years in a newspaper publisher training program in Kansas. I'm a trustee for KU's William Allen White School of Journalism and a consultant for the Kansas Press Association. When elected, I'll use my unique blend of experience in the newspaper business, the military, and public service to deliver results that matter to all Kansans.
Excuse me, Dena, your time's up. Thank you so much.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
Okay.
Your next question. What are the critical issues facing the state of Kansas that the legislature needs to address?
Yeah, so of the critical issues facing Kansans, I'd put the war on women and women's reproductive rights at the top of the list. Kansans in every part of our state spoke loudly and clearly in 2022, yet extreme right legislators won't give up in trying to strip away women's reproductive freedom. No means no. The will of the people was very clear, yet extreme right Republicans, my opponent included, refused to back down. And when it comes to healthcare, Medicaid expansion is another top issue. We know Medicaid expansion will help 152,000 Kansans, mostly the working poor, to access healthcare, and that includes 40,000 children. Besides being the right thing to do to help so many Kansas families, expanding Medicaid is also fiscally responsible. It simply makes no sense to continue sending billions of our tax dollars to other states to help them expand healthcare to help their residents. Republican leadership here in Kansas simply doesn't want to admit that we can be fiscally responsible and still support our friends and neighbors. That's the Kansas way. I will fight for Medicaid expansion that's long overdue in Kansas. As for other top issues, we have to continue to defend our public schools and educators from scams like school vouchers. School vouchers, as we're seeing in other states, are nothing more than welfare for the well-off. These vouchers will devastate our neighborhood schools, and that's really the goal of ultra-conservative Republicans who are working overtime to destroy public education. We also need to pursue common sense gun control measures to protect people from gun violence. Sensible change like background checks. I had world-class weapons training in the military and would never think of carrying a loaded gun now. I'm a strong advocate of safety-first gun control measures we need in Kansas. And we also need to pursue sensible tax relief that is fair and sustainable and for all Kansans, not just a select few. We cannot afford another reckless tax cut plan that leads to the devastating budget cuts of the Brownback era. And I might add a couple of extras. Affordable housing and medical marijuana need to be high priorities in Kansas.
Thank you. What legislative issue are you most passionate about, and what motivates and drives you to public service?
So the legislative issue I am most passionate about is defending our freedoms that are under constant attack in the legislature, from our freedom to vote to our freedom to make our own healthcare decisions. My opponent has worked to make it harder to vote, and that's unacceptable. Unlike him, I also trust Kansas families to make their own healthcare decisions. Republicans say they are the party of small government, but they prove time and time again they are the party of overreach. They're in our bedrooms, in our bathrooms, in our doctor's office visits. Their overreach simply knows no bounds. I'm ready to fight for equal rights and full protections for all Kansans and their families. I'll listen to and respect the people in my district, and I'll certainly be a thoughtful, sensible, and sincere representative who will put Kansas solutions first above the harmful far-right Republican agenda. My career has literally been devoted to community and public service. Serving others comes naturally to me. It truly is my North Star.
Thank you so much. Emily, why are you asking for us?
Yeah, so I'm asking for your vote because we need more common sense legislators in the State House. As I said, I will fight for our freedoms, and I will fight for policies that best serve working families and our communities. We have an opportunity in the 3rd District to flip a seat that's held by an extreme right Republican, someone who once again is a reliable rubber stamp for Republican leadership. This is a very winnable seat for us. Governor Kelly won this district. Kris Meyer defeated Kobach. And the constitutional amendment was defeated in this district. So I'm asking for your vote because flipping this seat means we can help break the Republican supermajority that's doing so much to hurt our state and the people of Kansas. It won't be easy, but with your support, we can and will win the Senate seat. And please check out my website at sattlerforkansas.com to learn more about me and offer your support. I welcome you to reach out with any questions. My contact information is on my website. Just want to thank everyone here on the call and, of course, the organizers of this important forum. And I hope to see everyone at the pie auction. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. It was nice to meet you on Zoom anyway.
Yes.
Thank you for reminding us again of the pie auction. Let's move on now to the Democratic candidate for House District 117, Bill Hammond. Hello. Please introduce yourself to our audience. As part of your introduction, part of your introduction, please include expertise, education, and experience that will help you do your job in the Kansas legislature.
First, thank you to the Democratic Party of Douglas County for hosting this forum. We do appreciate it, the opportunity to share information. I guess what I would want to say is I have an undergrad speech and theater, a lifetime teaching certificate. They don't even give those out anymore, but I happen to have one. I have a master's of divinity degree. I'm an ordained United Methodist minister, and I served in the Methodist Church full-time for a number of years. But in addition to that, I happen to have a CPA certificate, and I have served over 20 years in the educational institutions in Kansas as a business officer. And during that time as a business officer, I spent over 13 years at Dodge City USD, and we had either the highest or the second highest percentage of at-risk students in the entire state. And as a result of that, our district sued the state of Kansas, and I was part of that for 13 years. I attended schools for fair funding meetings. I was there when they had discussions. How do we finally convince small schools we're not trying to take anything away, but it's better funding for all? That kind of experience, I testified at the 3-judge panel on school for fair funding. I was there when the Supreme Court arguments were there, enforced, and I was there when they announced the decision. I have a background there that will make a difference because I'm passionate about educational funding and what we do for kids. In addition to that, I would also like to talk about the fact that I've been an administrator, and as an administrator, I've had to do multiple tasks and multiple projects at the same time. I oversaw an $80 million budget, and we did an $83 million school bond, which we passed in red Dodge City while sending people to Topeka who voted against school funding. We did it all. So I think that that's the experience that I would bring to this job, a compassion for people, a caring about students, and a caring about education.
Thank you so much. What are the critical issues facing the state of Kansas that the legislature needs to address?
I think we're going to continue to see the assault on women's rights. I think we're going to have to fight that every step of the way. We have to break the supermajority with this election to protect women's rights. That's one of the top priorities. The second thing is we work so hard to get funding in education where it is. We have to fight to keep it there. It is so hard to put together a case to again bring a case to the Supreme Court. So we need to fight for education funding. And the third area that I think is very important, I was out talking to voters today, and property tax is a burden that is destroying house ownership for our senior citizens. I think I may be the only person in this meeting this evening that actually was a finance officer that implemented LAVTR in a local budget back in the day when we actually got money from the state so we could bring property taxes down a little bit. We need to look at that again, and we need to make a difference in property taxes for our citizens.
Thank you again. What legislative issue are you most passionate about, and what motivates and drives you to public service?
Well, I think women's rights have become a very critical issue for all of us, and I've heard that from candidate after candidate, and it shouldn't even be an issue. It shouldn't be a partisan issue. It ought to be an automatic understanding, but it is an issue, and I will fight for that. Obviously, we have to be concerned not only about funding education, but I am also concerned what's happening to our college students. When I see the debt that many of our people are coming out of school with, it's just staggering. And maybe it's not bad for somebody who's going to go into business and make big bucks. But when you look at the debt that our people who are graduating, who want to become school teachers, social workers, it's hard. It's really, really hard. We need to do a better job of funding secondary aid and not putting it on school tuition that becomes student loans that is burdensome to our young people coming out of secondary education. So I think that's another issue that we need to really work on.
Thank you so much. I want to thank you for being here. It was very lovely to see you this evening. The final question then is, why are you asking for our votes?
I've been told we're not supposed to say this because a lot of the people who don't follow politics really don't understand. But I'm going to say the number one issue has to be we need to break the super majority. For the next 2 years, we have a Democrat governor, and there's some things we can get done if we can just break the super majority. And I think we can do that. And I appreciate the offer of Senator Francisco to come help after her primary, because we're going to need all the help we can. Last year, this seat was lost by 400 votes, 3.5%. To make up those, we're going to have to get every Democrat, every persuadable person to the polls and make a difference. So I'm asking for your vote. I'm also asking for your support. We can make a difference in the supermajority in the 117th House District. And thank you so much. And I do appreciate everyone's public service and what the Democratic Party is standing for and standing up against the forces in this state that are not good. So thank you so much for being here and being a part of this discussion.
Thank you. I appreciate your time and your being here. Our next candidate is for Kansas Board of Education, District 4, Kris Meyer. Thank you also for being here. Please introduce yourself to our audience. As part of your introduction, please include expertise, education, and experience that will help you do the job on the Kansas Board of Education.
Yes, hi, I'm Kris Meyer, and thank you again to the Douglas County Dems for this opportunity to provide this content to you this evening. As a dedicated advocate for our classroom heroes, who are our educators and staff, I was thrilled to announce my candidacy for the State School Board, District 4. My decision to run stems from a deep-seated belief in the power of education and a firm commitment to ensuring that every child in our state has access to quality learning opportunities. I grew up in Johnson County, and it's where my husband and I are raising our daughters. I went to Olathe Public Schools, and I received a top-notch quality education. So I'm running for Kansas State School Board because I want to ensure that our state continues to provide our daughters and every child in Kansas the same opportunities that it gave me. I have dedicated my career to public service, and my education credentials are strong. I've obtained a master's degree in school leadership, and I have served in Kansas public schools as a paraprofessional, a teacher, an assistant principal, a principal, and then also the executive director of the nonprofit foundation in USD 232. I have worked tirelessly to help working families and their children attend outstanding schools in USD 232, and I'm committed to advocating for policies and resources that will continue to support all educators in Kansas to improve all schools and to ensure that every child reaches their maximum potential.
Thank you. What are the critical education issues facing the state of Kansas that the Board of Education needs to address?
Yes, absolutely. And thank you to several of you for mentioning them earlier this evening. But number one, we need to ensure that we are prioritizing a quality education for all students, regardless of their zip code or socioeconomic status. We need to ensure equitable access to education for every child. Number two, critical issue that we've all heard a lot about is special education funding and funding for other key programs. We must fairly and fully fund public schools according to the law. The fact is that public education is the #1 constitutional obligation of the states. And so that's why it's important that more than half of our budget is allocated for education. And then finally, it is important to attract and retain dedicated teachers to provide a chance for every student to be prepared in life. So I've been in the trenches as both a teacher and a school administrator. We need to support these programs such as special education and at-risk funding because it impacts all students in all classrooms. So when teachers don't feel supported, they leave. And Kansas is unfortunately the second highest percentage of teachers leaving the profession at 5.36%. We need to change the narrative as well so that high school graduates and those that are looking at the teaching profession as a future career see it as a viable option for their future livelihood. And that includes work-life balance and financial well-being, as well as pathways for career advancement.
Thank you. What education issue are you most passionate about, and what motivates and drives you to public service?
Good question. So our daughters were adopted from foster care at the tender ages of 4 and 5 years old. I've witnessed firsthand the difference that it makes when children receive a quality education and they receive the physical and social, emotional supports that are necessary to thrive in public schools. So I believe that education is a great equalizer, and every child deserves an equal opportunity to succeed, regardless of their background or circumstances. I served in Title I schools for 12 years during my 16-year career in education. I will work tirelessly to promote policies that level the playing field for and all students and address disparities and resources for all. I'm very passionate and I am a champion for education. I've sung from the rooftops during the pandemic for my students and will fight for education because it's the cornerstone of our democracy. I'm dedicated to upholding and strengthening our public school system and ensuring that through robust public funding, our public schools become beacons of opportunity for all students. I will listen to constituents, and I believe in the power of collaboration and community engagement. So I will be a responsible and accessible representative and embolden all educators, listen to all students, parents, and community members, and then work together collaboratively to address the issues. And then finally, I want to build stronger communities. So strong communities are the heart, strong schools are the heart of strong communities. And I will work to build those partnerships between our schools, our families, our businesses, and the community organizations, recognizing that we all have a stake in the success of our schools and our students.
Thank you. Why are you asking for our votes?
All right, well, I am asking for your votes for the Kansas State School Board District 4. Because as I said earlier, I've been in the trenches for nearly 2 decades in public schools in Kansas. I strongly believe that education is the key to unlocking opportunity and building a brighter future for our great state. So with your support, I'm confident that we can create positive change and attract and retain dedicated educators and staff in our public schools and ensure that every child in Kansas has a chance to thrive. It is time to change the narrative about the teaching profession in Kansas and to challenge the status quo that Kansas has the second highest percentage of teachers leaving the profession. It is time to fully fund our critical programs such as special education and at-risk funding. And it is because our kids deserve the very best. So thank you for your consideration, and I humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you so much. In closing, I want to thank Kris Meyer, Bill Hammond, Dena Sattler, and Christina Haswood and Marci Francisco for being with us this evening. Whoever of you wins, Kansas wins. So we all appreciate your going forward and putting yourself out there to represent Kansans, and those of you that mainly represent Lawrence, we also appreciate that.